Welcome to your Supernatural Life, Ann Louise.
Hello, and how lovely to be with you, Beth.
So I'm so happy to talk to you.
My pleasure.
You and I both agree that today, more than ever, we're being bombarded by chemicals, environmental pollutants, plus bacteria and parasites. So tell us about your recent health experience that you talk about in your book of being diagnosed with acid reflux and what you ultimately did to heal yourself.
Oh, boy, what an experience that I write about in the Gut Flush Plan. Yes, I started having digestive problems and could not for the life of me figure out why somebody like me who tries to walk the walk and talk the talk and has been taking digestive enzymes, probiotics, and regular cleansing would have problems. And believe it or not, Beth, I was able to trace the source of my bacteria infection to two elements. One was an infected tooth, and the second was a hiatal hernia. And so what I learned is that many individuals that suffer from symptoms like I did, which was the acid reflux or GERD, may in fact just have a hiatal hernia where the tummy is pushed up and goes through the diaphragm. And you may also be the repository of a bacterial infection anywhere in your mouth because the teeth are connected to organs. And if there's a backlog of bacteria, either in the tooth, if it's a root canal tooth, if you've had it pulled, there may be something where there's a little hole in the jaw. All of that can seep into your system and then infect any organ or tissue. In my case, I had a combination of both. I was able to bring down that hiatal hernia, and then my GERD went away. And then I started to replenish my bacteria once again. I went on a loading dose of the probiotics that I speak of in the Gut Flush Plan and went on another cleanse because I had so much of this bacteria that was anaerobic that I had never even anticipated. So when you get into health to the level that we're both involved with, you really have to sometimes go to the ends of the earth, and then hopefully what we learn will help everybody else that we come in contact with.
Let's talk a little bit about food safety because you know, it's been a nightmare. It's in the news all the time, and you say that our digestive systems are less capable of coping with food contamination. So why is that?
Well, I think there are two reasons. The first is that many of us just do not have enough of a very important acid known as hydrochloric acid, which we start to lose about the age of 40. And if you don't have this HCl that your body normally produces, or if you're lacking iodine or even a little bit of salt and zinc, you're not making enough. That is the first line of protection that your body has against bacteria, like these crazy strains of E. coli and Salmonella that have infected so many people. So the first thing to do is to do my HCl test or get the HCl product, which you can get easily in health food stores or even on my website, and start to supplement, and you'll see that you can digest better. There'll be no more bloating, no more fermentation, no more gas, and then you'll know that your protein as well as your iron and your calcium are being better assimilated. So HCl to the rescue.
With every meal? With every meal?
Particularly with protein foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take it probably towards the end of the meal because if your system is not used to it, if you've been on a vegetarian or vegan program, your body does not make as much. And so I would put it towards the end of the meal. It is absolutely imperative and can be used to fight off the flu, believe it or not, because it's so antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal.
Wow. Now, you also talk about probiotics, and I think, you know, I've had a guest on, she's the founder of Nature, and she says that probiotics are like, you know, the 21st century medicine. Can you talk about why they're so important?
Yeah, I think second to the HCl, because if you think about it, a food or bacteria or whatever may be onslaughting your system goes into your body first through the tummy, and if you don't have a good way of detoxifying that, then whatever those bacteria, parasites, fungi, or allergens are, they're going to make their way into the intestinal tract, and that's where that second line of defense comes into play. And that would be your probiotics or the good bacteria. And I think your guest from Nature was 101% correct by saying it's almost like our 21st century medicine. It is our 21st century antibiotics, but it's probiotics. It's for life, not against it. And what we need, Beth, which is so very misunderstood, is a correct balance of power. You need about 85% of these good guys to 15% of these so-called pathogens. When we do stool analysis and tests of bacteria in my office, we find it exactly topsy-turvy. We find that 15% of your bacteria is from the good stuff, and about 80% may be pathogenic or filled with yeast. So on a daily basis, you have to eat something that is fermented, maybe a little plain yogurt, a little sauerkraut, maybe some olives and brine, so that you're feeding your system properly and keeping your gut acidic. You know, everybody, Beth, talks about alkaline, and alkalinize, but not when it comes to your gut and your stomach. Those are two areas that need to be acidic.
So, but that's not saying not to eat alkaline-forming foods, is it?
No, what it means to say is that you need your HCl in your tummy, and you need to make sure that your gut is sufficiently acidic, which is going to kill all these nasty bacteria, and will also provide you with a medium that will not allow them to grow and will be able to feed your own native probiotics. So it really seems like an irony and a bit of a dichotomy here, whereby you should be eating foods that properly alkalinize you, not overly so, but just well-balanced foods. And then you certainly need to make sure that your HCl is up to snuff, and whatever you do, that your gut needs to be properly acidic. That's why we use lactobacillus bacteria, and they're made from lactic acid organisms. It's because beneficial acids are really a key to life, especially when it comes to your GI tract.
What's your opinion about drinking alkalinized water, for example? Is that going to sort of throw things off?
Well, that is such a good question, because it's the question that I get all the time at AnnLouise.com, where
really?
And people just keep asking. I think for perhaps the majority of people that truly are eating a poor diet, you know, that are overly acidic, not because of meat, but because of sugar. Sugar is much more acidic than meat. Or that are taking too much coffee. Coffee is very acid-producing. Supplementing with an acidic or an alkaline, rather, based water, maybe it's an 8.2, probably would be of benefit. But for those of us that have kept a balanced diet, or eating our greens, or eating important fruits and vegetables, or just moderating our meat intake and so on and so forth, I truly think a neutral water with a neutral pH is best. If you're truly sick, however, maybe a little bit of that alkalinizing water. I've been testing people that have become too alkaline, so there's a balance, and it's not an easy one to achieve.
Let's talk a little bit about parasites, because most people think that only people in the third world have them, but statistics say many of us test positive for them. And you say in your book that they're a vastly under-acknowledged source of health problems. So where do we pick parasites up, and what sorts of damage can they do, and how do you know if you have them?
Those are all the questions that are so important, aren't they, when it comes to these creepy crawlies that we see in the system? Well, number one, I think 8 out of 10 of us are carrying something around. How do we get them? Good question. Think of your water. Think of your unwashed or even raw vegetables that we think are so healthy to eat. Think of your dogs, your wonderful dogs and kitty cats that we love because they are so lovable, and perhaps they're carrying something that can be transmitted, and not all animal diseases can be, but there's certain varieties that certainly can. And just think of the concept of, going outside, playing in the dirt or playing in your garden, playing in the sandbox. Who knows what dog, cat, or raccoon has frequented there. So if you start letting your imagination run wild, you'll see that it's a pretty easy way that most of us can be infected with these parasites. And if you go out to eat, let's say, and you're enjoying some sushi, dare I say it, or some undercooked meat for that matter, you can be the unwitting recipient of a souvenir that you'll take home from the restaurant, and it'll affect you for a very long time. Finding out how you get them or determining them is a little bit more difficult, because even the best of tests can usually miss the big worms. So I tell everybody every year, and this is a great time, Beth, because in traditional Chinese medicine we're in large intestine time. This is a great time to do a parasite cleanse. And, of course, the one that I suggest, if we can share this with your listeners, is the My Colon Cleansing Kit that's available certainly on my site. And you've got to get the big ones, got to get the little ones, use a probiotic to replenish the beneficial bacteria, and you will be surprised, amazed and just absolutely fascinated with some of these creatures that come out of your system and how much better you feel. Many people that can't sleep, that have skin problems, that are depressed, that have chronic fatigue, or even have fibromyalgia, very oftentimes are loaded with parasites. And I dare say, I feel that this explosion in gluten sensitivity, much of that is because most people are carrying certain kinds of worms. And I'm going to stick to that story because I've seen it time and time again. Get rid of the worms and you're no longer sensitive to gluten or any gluten-containing grains.